There he is. There's the very not so good sounding Wookiee, and we are back, folks. You're listening to this week's Freaky Friday. That's right, we do have the two Chewies in the house. Things could get interesting. I'm Kev Baker. We've got Jimmy Jeans. We've got Scotty Lopez, and we have the man himself, Joe Joseph. And before the break, Joe was about to get into the Mandela Effects. I had to cut you off, Joe, and I apologise for that. But this is worthy of a standalone segment, really, because I've always said Mandelas, a while after they'd been around and looking at them, and I'm really none the wiser as to what's going on. But I made a kind of, I don't know, a rule about it, shall we say, and that is that they're really, really personal. Mandela Effects, and you can go on social media and you can even see arguments starting because some people remember one thing, and you know how it goes. And it's like the UFOs, it's like the paranormal. People can be highly skeptical of that, and it doesn't matter how skeptical you are. If something actually then happens, like you see a UFO or something paranormal does take, then it becomes very personal to you. And
yes, it does.
Me, very much like the Mandela Effect. Because who am I to tell you that maybe you're wrong about something that you definitively remember being changed from your past? I can't do that. And there's things in my past that I definitely know have changed. So that's why I say it's very, very subjective. It's very personal.
So here's the thing. I think you're bang on. The Mandela Effect is personal. Now, I don't think people realize on what level that it can get down to as far as personal. I mean, it is as personal can be. Now, from a biblical prophecy perspective, and based on her research, she doesn't think, and I don't think, that we have a lot of time left from, humanity's perspective or with this age. The age is coming to an end. We know that. But I think there's a lot to be said for that and a lot that's being overlooked. There's an importance to the fact that things are changing and we have no recollection or idea that it's taking place. That these things are just happening it's an unbelievable the levels, the supernatural levels, the materialistic levels. It's happening at every level of existence that we experience, and some that we don't experience. But in the Bible, one thing that really stuck out is Isaiah 11:6, right? Because it talks about, the wolf is going to lay down with the lamb. And I remember it. She remembers it. A lot of people remember it because it's one of those things you see a lot of on the internet now, and especially YouTube, and people making videos about this. She's a Leo herself. You don't realize the power that there is in understanding the symbolism and also, astrology from the standpoint of not trying to tell the future, but how that makes up who we are. Like when you're born, I'm a Sagittarius, right? So when you're born under that sign, there are attributes to your personality, to your, who you are physically, everything that plays a part of. Those stars, when you're born under that sign or under any sign, has, again, an effect on who you are from the time you're born till the time you die. There are personality characteristics inherent with that make me different from her. She's a Leo. I'm a Sagittarius. There are distinct differences between that. Honey Badger in the chat room says, I remember it being the lion and the lamb and not the wolf. Absolutely. That's a hugely significant change, because
there's heaps of Christian memes on the internet, Joe. It's a lion and a lamb.
Yes, yeah. So there's all these memes too to do that. But what does that mean, right? So that means Jesus has always been represented by a lion. You know, he was the Lion of the tribe of Judah, is the Lion of the tribe of Judah, and that's been that way for as long as it's been, right? So now all of a sudden it's a wolf. Well, what does the wolf represent? The wolf represents Satan. So now you're substituting Yeshua, Jesus, and with a wolf in sheep's clothing, if you will. And I mean, it doesn't get much more obvious than that. And that, what does that have as far as implications? Well, the implications, based on our opinion, are we're seeing what the Bible describes as the abomination of desolation, you know, or the fact that people can't get the truth because the truth is being skewed. It's being changed right before our eyes, so we don't know what's real and what's not. We have no idea. And that's dangerous. But it also, in prophecy, that's also a sign that the end is near. It's right around the corner, you know. And that's very important. That, if you ask me, people need to start getting their houses in order and not take things and time for granted. Because I got to tell you, it is quite riveting, the changes that I see and that we've experienced and see taking place, Kev. There's a tremendous amount of significance here.
It's almost like you say the changing of the age. Again, I wonder if it's to do with the amount of data that's been produced and is in our environment right now. Last night, talking about, you know, the potential for the multiverse with Dr. Brian Keating. So are we fleeting in between one timeline and the other? And I've spoke about quantum pollution. Now, that comes from Geordie Rose himself, and that's where he talks about the quantum computers going to these other dimensions and then returning what he calls 10% extra information and resources.
Oh, yeah. How crazy is that, Kev? I mean, he's out there telling you.
Exactly.
You know?
You know, that in itself might mean, you know, okay, you know, it's just him being very kind of sensational the way Geordie is. But then there's a famous photograph as well. And if you go, it's one of the scientists at CERN, and he's got Mandela 1 bond or Mandela 0 bond 1. Now, this whole bond thing, it seems pretty bizarre, but the Mandela's there.
Yeah.
That relates to the type of mathematics called Monte Carlo mathematics. It's combinatorial optimization. Yes. And that's exactly what the D wave does,
right,
when it's going to other dimensions. So that's why we put 2 and 2 together there. Yeah. And it's almost like the scientist from CERN, some way, is kind of thumbing his nose at people saying, we're predicting the changes or we're causing these to happen.
Absolutely. And Scotty, this is the part of the Bible that really kind of slammed it home for me to tell me where we actually are. And it's in an obscure book that a lot of people don't ever read or realize it's out there. It's Amos. Amos is one of the last books in the Old Testament before the New Testament kicks off. And Amos 8:11 says, "Behold, the days are coming, says Jehovah, that I will send a famine onto the land, not a famine of bread, not a thirst of water for water, but of hearing the words of Jehovah. They shall wander from sea to sea, and from north to east. They shall run to and fro, seeking the word, but shall not find it." Now, interestingly enough, that's exactly what we're seeing. There's a thirst and a hunger for the truth. But people can't find the truth, Scotty, because who knows what the freaking truth is? Look at that video technology out there now. Remember and this is a couple years back that this was first put out there, where, you know, you had like somebody in a camera, and on the screen it was George Bush. His voice, his likeness, you couldn't tell the difference. So we're at a point now in our existence where just with the technology, we can't tell what's real, what's not, what's the truth, what's false, And then you throw the supernatural part into it, Scotty. Holy moly.
Yeah, I mean, this is wild stuff, and the more I like look into the Mandela effect, and the more I, kind of research into it, the more it starts to like blow my mind, and I kind of find more that just makes me start questioning what's really going on. And I think you brought up a good point about the whole, the changing of like verses in the Bible and stuff like that. I think we have to start looking at some sort of supernatural component to this, or maybe even, I guess you could say, prophecy or something, because I think these verses are being changed for a reason. And I think in a way, it's a deception, right? And I think only those who truly know are going to realize that those verses have been changed. You know what I mean? And those who just kind of go along with it and don't really realize that it has been changed and just continue to take it as, well, hey, that was part of the Bible, whatever. I mean, I don't know. I mean, this is like starting to blow my mind, right?
It's like a direct attack on Christians, the way you're saying there, Scott.
I think so. I think the Mandela effect is. I'm thinking this is some kind of deception that's being pulled on people. That reality is being changed. And those who are able to see it are able to see it, and those who aren't are never going to be able to see it. But there's like a group of people who like realize what's going on and can see that things are being changed. And when you point that out, well, the people who don't see that changed are going to be like, well, you're crazy. Nothing has changed, and that's why you have this disconnect. And you have people arguing, like you said, Kev, on the internet. One person remembers it one way, one person remembers it the other way. But something has changed, obviously, if those two people are not seeing something, they're not seeing the same thing, something has changed. So, I don't know. It's really weird, man. Very, 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 very crazy stuff. I do think this whole kind of prophecy thing does kind of play into this. I think it's just a little more than, CERN opened up a portal or something like that. I think we're looking at something at a higher level here that I don't think we can really put our thumb on right now.
Go ahead, Jimmy. I know you got to weigh in on this. There's got to be the Jimmy Jeans opinion as to what's going on. Come on.
Well, I'm never short on opinion.
Yes.
So, what I was thinking about when you guys were talking about it, because the Mandela effect for me has a lot of meaning, as far as I don't just see just the Bible portion of it. I'm not just looking at that. I mean, I see the thing as a whole, sort of. Just, I don't really pay a lot of attention to it, but what I was actually thinking about when you guys were talking about the Bible was how deep this could actually be, in the sense that this is a holy book. The percentage of people reading it that know about the Mandela effect is very small. So there's major changes happening in the prayer structure of a whole religious sect, that people are saying prayers that are in the book that they consider to be a holy book, yet they don't know anything about the Mandela effect. They don't know anything's been changed. And I think incrementally over time, this is how they change whole societies, by changing little bits of information and start to make things socially acceptable that weren't acceptable in the past. In other words, at one point, worshiping Hermes or whatever, or worshiping Nimrod, as you guys were talking about earlier, and throwing babies on the barbecue or whatever was normal, an everyday occurrence, and nobody thought anything of it.
Right.
But eventually, when this new Christianity came in, and they slowly moved into the Christian way of being, the Gnostics, and then you see the rise of the Roman Church, and Christianity's face changed completely. And so I find this to be, very interesting and really, really interesting jump. I'm so glad that you brought it up.
Yeah, no, and we're just skimming the surface here, I know, and that's why it's so important that you dive down these. And believe me, folks, it's not just limited to the Bible. People across all faiths, if you will, are experiencing changes at the root of their belief structure. I mean, it's unbelievable what's taking place. It's an attack on levels that I didn't even know we were even remotely capable of having to endure. Kev, so this it's traumatic. It's extremely traumatic. But I'm also encouraged by the amount of people that are taking the time and putting in the effort to research it, because there are people out there that wouldn't normally engage in woo.
It's making people read the Bible, huh, Joe?
Yeah. It's actually but to that point, the audio Bibles are changing. All of it's changing. So as they have this thirst, and as they're going down that path, the stuff that they're reading and the things that they're being subjected to may not totally be the truth. There's no doubt. Portions of it have been altered.
Absolutely. The Mandela Effect, the whole kind of subject, it's one of these kind of dinner table topics, as myself and Charlie Robinson like to say. It's something that you can talk about with family and friends without fear of people really thinking you've lost your mind, because you can go for the really popular ones like Mirror, Mirror, Magic Mirror, that kind of thing, and you can really see people questioning what on earth's name is going on. And once you've opened the door to Mandela Effects, well, you can start talking about other stuff that's weird and wonderful as well. But we're concentrating on the Bible because predominantly on the show, and what we look at on the show, is Christianity and the changes there. And Scott, I absolutely get what you say about CERN and the quantum computers, but it's not even disagreeing with you, because we're brainstorming here. I actually think the Bible changes in particular add weight to what somebody like Anthony Patch has been putting forward all along, that these are portals to demonic realms.
Yeah.
And if they are demonic, you would expect, some changes to happen in their enemy. And the book of the enemy to the demons would be the Bible. So again, I totally see both sides of that. Absolutely. And if we think about something else, guys, something we often talk about on the show, I think that fits with us as well. Simulation theory. Up until this point, up until the point where we had the computing power to start building our own simulations, things have been steadily kind of ticking along. The clock speed, the information has been pretty steady, until the internet came along. And we started not only the internet producing vast amounts of data, but now with the Internet of Things, all of us, every minute of the day, data. Even the photons that we're getting from the sun now, and photons contain data, they have changed because of the life cycle of the sun. And could it be that we're just seeing the breakdown of our simulation because there's just too much data? You have a computer running long enough and you put enough programs on there and you don't do enough formatting of the hard drive. Over time, you're going to get problems. Doesn't matter how good that machine was when you bought it. Doesn't matter how much money you spent on it. Over time, things are going to start breaking down. Maybe a line in the registry corrupts here or there. Part of the memory goes, and you start to see things slowing down. Your computer starts acting weird. Why did it do that? Maybe that ties into this as well. But it's all maybes and ifs and buts, because, again, there's no right or wrong answer here, is there?
No.
glitches in the matrix. And no, I mean, I wasn't trying to poo-poo the whole CERN thing and all that, because definitely they are opening up
I said that more for the
portals
kind of out there in case they thought we were disagreeing, Scott, because I know exactly where you're coming from, dude.
Yeah. I think it's a combination of everything. You know, you can't just pin this down to one specific thing. And you know, I think it was on a previous Freaky Friday that we were talking about, you know, the Mayan calendar in 2012 and how everything seemed to kind of shift into a different, to me, it seems like we shifted into a different timeline or almost a different reality around that whole 2012 time frame. Like not specifically on one date, not like December 21st, it was all of a sudden this change. I think just the timeline around 2012, you know, give or take a few years, or that block of time, we slowly shifted into this. It just seems like this whole different realm where, I mean, just kind of speaking on a personal level, and I know, you know, amongst us, you know, we've had to deal with a lot of crazy things just since that time frame. It just seems like we've been challenged by the universe, let's just say. You know, you know what I mean? So I think I think a lot of people who are awake, I guess you could say, or you know, whatever you want to call it, we're being challenged. We're being tested right now to see how steady we really are, you know, and how firm we are in writing this out. And those who are going to be able to write it out, well, you know, they're going to be able to write it out, and those who can't, well, you know, I don't know, but I think there's a lot of deception going on a very, very high level, a supernatural level, I guess you could say, maybe biblical level. And I think it's just we're in this time frame now where we're starting to see the separation of those who are able to see the truth, and who are able to you know, who really have that connection, I guess you could say, and those who don't. So
those are eyes to see. And you know, listening to that there, it's almost like, and you're gonna love this, Joe. Yeah, it's almost like some kind of digital rapture, right?
Well,
they'll have one kind of memory of how the timeline was, and then those who don't won't.
Not a single word rapture in the entire Bible, first of all. So that I hate that term because it doesn't exist but that's even beside the point. Think about this.
Maybe it's in there now.
Well, yeah, you never know. I guess we should dive in and probably look at that. Not only is this, you know, taking up a lot of time for people to have to go and research it in ways that they could probably be doing other things, right? But think about this. We've made tremendous scientific advances in the last 100 years or so. Just think about the fact that for 5,000 to 6,000 years prior to that, the horse and buggy was the primary mode of transportation for humanity for that long. And then in the span of 100 years, we've gone from horse and buggy to basically interdimensional travel. So there's a tremendous jump in technology. Now, where does that come from? Well, Geordie Rose said it best, and you said it too, you know, that they send that stuff out, and when it comes back, they've got information and then some. And what is that and then some? Well, to me, that and then some is the fallen ones, the Nephilim, sending this information to them as a, hey, you know, here's this information that'll help you advance your understanding and your knowledge of the way that things work. But in reality, what these scientists are doing, whether they realize it or not, is building the things and creating the technology necessary to free these entities from their prison. And I
exactly.
think that
they're
what's
nudging
going
him
on.
towards that goal of them. They want to be freed from that prison, but they can't do it themselves, so they have to manipulate humanity into creating the technology and whatnot to do it. So, and I guess this goes back to the whole arches being put up in DC, because don't the arches kind of don't they represent a gateway, right?
Yes,
you walk through the arches.
Huge implication, Scotty. And the Bible refers to this stuff as the doctrine of demons. It's what it is. So we know what it is. We see what's going on. The question now is, how far are they along, and what can we expect? I'm telling you guys, there is nothing in Revelation to me outside of the second coming that hasn't been fulfilled yet. It's all been fulfilled. So we're just waiting. That at this point, it's just hurry up and wait.
Don't.
Yeah.
It's like Jaws in the water outside of over there in Massachusetts. Those shark attacks.
Yeah, all of a sudden there's Sharkapalooza out there.
It's like Schrodinger's apocalypse. It's both happening for some people and not for others at the same time. And we'll be back for hour number 2 right here on what is yet again another brilliant Freaky Friday on TFRlive.com, where silence is consent. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Real people, real radio.
Initiating the truth frequency.
This is Truth Frequency Radio.
It's hour number 2 of Freaky Friday on your protection from deception, TFRlive.com. Don't forget, folks, join us over in the chat room, TFRlive.com/chat, and take part in the unbelievable conversation that's taking place over there right now. And so we're talking about the Mandela Effect and how this information is being relayed to science, to these technology companies and everything else. You see things like, for example, Google's censored search engine, and then how they openly deny that they're doing it. Meanwhile, we're the subject of all this censorship in real time every day. We're all experiencing it. Just because they say, no, it doesn't exist, or no, this has been debunked, doesn't mean, folks, that it has. Obviously, these tech companies and these technocrats, if you will, these super, uber powerful technocrats have a plan. That may not be their own plan, but it's a plan nonetheless. And that plan is to circumvent reality and become gods themselves. That's what they want to be. They want to be immortal, and they want to be like and or exceed God's power. And they think that they can do it, and they're being duped into it by these imps on the other side, by these Nephilim on the other side that are feeding them this information. And think about it. When you're given something like this, just think about anybody out there that has had a profound spiritual experience. Doesn't matter what you believe in or whatever, but the fact that you do and you've experienced it, it's unlike anything you've ever experienced. The power that's behind that and how you feel when it happens, it's a very special experience that transcends our reality. It drops you right to your knees. And so I understand why these people in power feel compelled to do this, because it's a powerful thing. But we have to recognize the fact that they are being tools for these demons, and that it's a very real thing that's occurring. And it doesn't end well for humanity when all is said and done because of this. So we have to really, really, really understand this for ourselves, for our own well-being, for our own spiritual well-being, because the implications of this, guys, I mean, it's just unbelievable. I can't even quantify it because of just how out there it is, and the fact that we don't know what's real and what's not anymore.
Well, you know what, Joe? I'm going to tell you, I was just recently working up in Aspen, and I was working for a high-tech security firm up there doing high-end residential and security installation.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say that the level that these people live at, literally, because the people that live up there are definitely the elite. There's no question. And the level that they live at is so far beyond anything. I mean, it's not even like we're living on the same planet. If you're just a working person, literally, I'm sort of bound by some documents I signed. And I could try to say this without saying anything, but I was at an individual's residence who was involved with a museum that he owned, and he had a Monet in his kitchen that's never even been viewed in public.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally, I mean, the what you can do with the kind of wealth that you're talking about and the kind of technology that's available, literally the world is your oyster when you have when you have all the money in the world to hire a brain to come up with a solution to anything you want to do.
Think about that, Jimmy, just for a second, because I think that's a huge and important fact to really drive home, is the fact that, you know, let's just throw an arbitrary figure of $1 billion. $1 billion is an unbelievable amount of money, dude. That's like 80 pallets, double stacked, full of $100 bills. You know, let's just throw it. It's probably a lot more than that. But I'm just saying that it's an obscene amount of money. To somebody like Jeff Bezos, it's a drop in the bucket. What can this guy do with $1 billion? That's pocket change for him. So
and he's got people willing to, and even if he doesn't even use his own money, all he has to do is come up with an idea, and he's got all these people throwing money at him. And here's another thing, Joe, another thing for the listeners to keep in mind too: these corporations have no borders. They're not subject to any laws anywhere. They can move anywhere they want.
Exactly.
They're doing something that's not legal here. They just have a satellite office over in China where.
And thank you. And we just saw that recently with cloning human beings for the purpose of stem cell research and other reasons. You know, oh well, you know, over here it's unethical. Well, then let's just take it to China where ethics don't apply. Yay!
Or at least the same ethics don't apply. I mean, there's a lot of people.
Exactly right.
Did you know at this point that the Chinese middle class is over 300 million, more than the whole population of the United States? So that the consuming public in the middle class in China, if America was wiped off the map right now, there would still be those consumers to buy all the goods from the rest of the world. So, I mean,
yeah. Hey, Ange just pointed something out too, and I think that this is pretty interesting too. Not just billionaire tech, right? But you've got YouTubers out there getting and buying CRISPR kits and injecting chicken eggs with human sperm and making hybrid creatures on what is it called? A homunculus or something like that.
Yeah.
So,
that's like the golem from back in the day of, was it John Dee and that as well?
Right. No, absolutely.
They're just husks, man. They're just vehicles for
They're just vehicles. But the fact is, Kev.
Jimmy were asking this the other night because get this now, Joe.
Yeah.
They're able to create totally artificial eggs in the lab. And we're saying, well, what happens when that happens then? I mean, is it still like, is it the way we're conceived when, you know, you have that?
Obviously, it's not.
You see, that spark isn't there, is it?
Right. That whatever. And so with that said, what are we creating? But even more so than that, anybody can do it. So, it even reminds me of that TED talk you sent to me months back on gene drive technology. It just takes one mistake. We don't even know if they've made it yet. They may have made it. But the fact is, gene drive technology, now all of a sudden, the CRISPR kit is embedded in you and it self-replicates. Holy crap. I mean, we're diving down a road that you can't understate. The road to hell is paved by good intentions. I mean, the initial thought for a lot of this technology comes and is very well founded in humanity. It's well founded in morality. The person that's inventing this stuff 99 times out of 100 isn't thinking nefarious thoughts wanting to take over the world. They're trying to solve human issues. But the problem that we end up having is, after that initial thought, after the creation of the technology, that's when it's co-opted and turned into something totally perverse. And I'll give you an example of that, because I can think of no better example than the Ron Paul revolution of 2007. So there it is, right? And it is powerful, and it's changing things on a scope that I had never seen political change occur in this country. And no sooner did they have a 1 million man march in Washington, D.C., and they show the true power of a real grassroots revolution, if you will, that these organizations like FreedomWorks then come in and co-opt the whole thing, and Occupy and all this stuff. They get co-opted and totally neutered, and then they advance agendas of men and women who have absolutely none of our interests in their minds and in their hearts. So that's how it ends up working. The same way with this technology, that there's a scientist out there that probably, when they created CRISPR, holy crap, look at this, I can engineer I can engineer sickness and disease out of the human and actually create a new form of medicines and things like this, just to find out that, oh yeah, by the way, we can also do designer humans, and we can unlock immortality and all this other stuff. And that's not what this person was thinking, not in a million years, So that's the issue, Jimmy, is that truly is, the road to hell. And no one really means it that way.
No, and I mean, people invent stuff all the time, and it's immediately confiscated by the government. I mean, I was doing some work. I was about to start doing some testing with somebody that developed a way to create a bubble where RF couldn't get in. And this was right when they were doing that, right when the Iraq War was starting, and there was all these IADs or IEDs, and they blow those up with cell phones. So what they wanted to do is they were going to sell this to the government so that they could protect the vehicles. So it would create this bubble where RF couldn't get in. So if these roadside bombs were close to where the trucks were going to be driving, they wouldn't blow up because the RF couldn't get through. So we were about to start doing some testing on this thing, and the government showed up and grabbed this guy's whole situation and said they'd taken it in a matter of national security, and there was nothing you could do about it. Yeah. So I mean, and the other guys you see, like the guy with the dune buggy that runs on water, he ends up dead. I mean, and then the technology goes nowhere. So I mean, there's a lot of these things we don't even get it. We don't even get a chance to look at, because they either they're taken away, or they're absorbed, or they're just bought up and put on the shelf by somebody who doesn't want any competition.
That's what they did to Tesla. They ruined him. Here, free energy. Just the thought, right? Just the thought of free, unlimited, wirelessly transmitted energy. He didn't even have to bring that to fruition. He just had to speak it, and they were poo-pooing him and totally vilifying him and taking advantage of the fact that he was an idiot savant. They basically stole his life's work and they buried it and they shelved it and they used it for all the wrong reasons.
Wilhelm Reich, same thing.
Wilhelm Reich.
Yeah, they took all of his books and they burned them all his notes. They, because he made it rain in the desert. And they said it was because it was sexual, because he was talking about sexual energy.
Right.
Orgone energy. And they associated it with sex, and they said he was a pornographic distributor. And they burned all his books.
But I mean, we could go T. Henry Murray. There's so many different scientists, so many different inventors that have gotten totally and complete their lives turned upside down. You could even say that even with the Supreme Court thing going on, this poor sap, just if people can have their careers and their families ruined just on hearsay, we're in a bad place, a very dark, bad place, So there's a lot to take in, grasp, and understand about how precarious of a situation we're in, humanity. And it doesn't matter. Here's the thing, Kev. It doesn't matter if you believe it or not. Just look around you. It's happening.
No, absolutely. And you were just talking about, these inventors over the years. And somebody sent me a video of a gentleman. And I don't know if you've heard of this guy. I've certainly been checking him out. I've been looked at a couple of his videos now. And, you hear about John Hutchinson. I think.
Oh, John Hutchinson, yeah.
This is a new one on me. And his name is Gerard Morin. That's Morin. And it says here, inventor Gerard Morin has come up with what appears to be a possible variant on or of the motor generator, self-looped, with usable energy left over. Now, obviously, that's a bit confusing. So it says here.
So he's basically saying an over-unity generator.
Yep, and he says he's been studying Tesla AC power for 15 years with special focus in the past 10 months. And he says it's not the same thing as the typical AC current. He calls it radiant watts and says Tesla claimed that radiant watts will not kill you. Now, this is somebody that I urge people to check out. I'll drop a link to his YouTube channel actually in the chat room right now as we speak. And yeah, Gerard Morin, well worth checking out, Joe.
Okay, so and that kind of ties into something that real life I'm doing right now. And if you want to know why it is that I can't spend as much time doing what I enjoy doing, doing my own broadcast and all that kind of stuff, it's because I'm really hip deep now into engineering and manufacturing engineering and all that kind of stuff. So I've been having to do a lot of research because my plant's utility costs are through the roof, and it's a brand new facility. And already we're like, what the heck is going on? Now, come to find out, up here in the Northeast, as is in California, you've got extremely high utility costs relative to the rest of the country. And to give you an example, although my plant doesn't use any more electricity than, say, a sister plant down in Texas, their energy costs are 5 times less than mine. So what I saw was the writing on the wall that things aren't going to get better, and I needed to find a way, or I need to find a way to make my plant less reliant on, say, electricity, right? So I start doing a little research, and I start finding all these peer-reviewed articles coming out of China. Why? Because China is also, with their manufacturing, struggling with energy, not so much from the standpoint of cost, but from the standpoint of what it's doing to their environment. Over there, they've got a lot of coal-fired boilers, and it's causing smog so bad that that it's making people extremely sick. You can't go out without a mask, and even then it's not safe to go outside. You can't see in front of your face during the day. It's just god awful. God awful. So I start reading a lot of their peer-reviewed work into some of their latest manufacturing efforts as far as energy independence. And what I'm coming to find out, guys, is not only is it achievable, but a lot of these plants over in China are now energy neutral. Now, how many plants here in the United States have you heard of that are energy neutral? Because I haven't heard of it, and it's almost the holy grail of manufacturing. So I'm reading this one of these peer-reviewed articles, and this is not, by the way, an invention of mine or any sort of thing. This has already been done. This was done 100 years ago, but I start putting things on paper, and wouldn't you know it, Kev, I figured out how to make a perpetual motion boiler running off of nothing but my wastewater. You know why? Yeah. Because they're doing it in China. So how come we're not finding out about this? Well, we're not finding out about this because what would that do to our economy if all of a sudden manufacturing eliminates their reliance on, say, LP gas or coal or oil or whatever it is that fires their boilers or does whatever, right? So let me tell you how it works. So you just basically, you have a boiler, right? And you're going to take steam or heat and you're going to utilize that to make electricity. And this is just one of many ways to do it, but you can take a cogen or anything like that. That cogen is going to generate electricity, and then it's going to send that electricity over to an HHO generator. The Chinese are making these gigantic hydrogen or basically electrolysis machines that take the water and then using the energy from the generator, the turbine that your boiler is creating, separates the oxygen and the hydrogen, and then you use that as the fuel for your boiler. So not only are you making electricity and steam, but now you're making your own fuel to feed your boiler in perpetual motion.
Badass, man.
Yeah. So they're doing this over there, right? Why aren't we doing it over here? Is anybody asking any questions? I had no idea that they were even doing it on that scale. So what's going on? So of course now I'm pursuing it, and everybody's like, whoa, what's this? This is unbelievable that actually every plant here in the United States can be energy neutral, but they will not do it because our economy is so tied to oil that it would just totally and completely devastate it in the short run, if it's not managed correctly. But the thing is as human beings, we were born with brains, and guess what? We can manage this and do it. And it's a free humanity moment. It's sitting right here, right now in front of us. Unbelievable.
I know, it is unbelievable. And, there's so many ways that you can offset different aspects of our lives that actually cost money. For example, if you combine some of these techniques that you're talking about, Joe, and these other techniques that are also available, you get geothermal. I mean, there's ways that you can take I'm not even kidding. You could take a black hose, black garden hose, and put it on your roof, make it go back and forth in loops. And that water in that hose will get so hot, it will scorch you. So, I mean, if you got a piece of property and you applied some of these techniques that are widely available, there's nothing wrong with any of them. There's nothing magical about them. You can use them as much as you want. I mean, for example, I was into wind technology for a bit, and I was going to try to make these wind generators. And so I bought this sailboat, and I was going to, test it out there and all this. But the bottom line is, what I found out when I started to do the research on wind generation and power is that these smaller propellers that it doesn't take much wind to blow on, those spin around a lot more than like a giant style propeller, like they use those giant wind generators that they have with the propellers. But it turns out that the shape of the double helix is a much better waveform to use for generating wind power. And so if you take I made a DNA strand style double helix out of a piece of 4-inch PVC pipe, and I attached it to a pulley, and which was attached to a high output alternator for a emergency vehicle that's got sirens and all that on it because it puts out a lot of amps.
Sure.
So you didn't really have to turn that wind generator too much to generate the kind of amps that could charge batteries. So you combine these techniques with permaculture, Joe, and maybe some aquaponics as well.
Oh, man. Yeah. I mean, unbelievable free humanity moment, Right.
By
the way, all this stuff is taking place, and personally for me, because I was done wrong by government. And so now I'm in the private sector, and wouldn't you know, now I can explore this kind of stuff. So it's kind of cool, that, and that in and of itself was God leading me out, because I don't know if I would have had the cojones to go to the private sector, because I don't listen to my wife enough, who was bashing me over the head with a claw hammer saying, get out of there, and of course I didn't listen. So eventually I was made to listen, and I listened, and now, this is the kind of cool stuff that I'm being exposed to. And, oh, by the way, other countries are realizing this and achieving it. And you have to ask, why aren't we seeing it here? If energy and everything is so important, and man, bear, pig is going to destroy the planet, and it's that detrimental, then why aren't we in haste implementing this technology to stop the problem? It's just like, let me say this, it's just like the opioid epidemic, right? There's a cure for the if in fact, like they say, it's deaths that is the driver to this whole hysteria taking place, that it's because of that, then guess what? My wife developed a way to be able to stop all those deaths from occurring tomorrow, because she's a chronic pain sufferer, and because she had to figure it out because no one else was going to do it, to figure out how it is. How do we stop it? Well, you just make a Narcan injector very much like a pacemaker, And we could get into that after the break, but I'm saying these technologies exist, folks, to stop these crises from taking place. The crises are not really crises at all. We'll be right back.